We need to pay some bills, so that's why it's been our standard practice to approve a 50% operating budget based on the previous year's budget. And the superintendent and the finance committee are recommending full board approval of the 2018-2019 operating budget. The next meeting will not take place at Hope Forest on April 30th due to a committee of the whole meeting.
Thank you. Teaching and learning, Mr. Johnson?
Teaching and learning met Tuesday, April 10th at 6:30 p.m. The roll, myself, Mrs. Gleason, Dr. Williams, absent, Mr. Canning, guest none. Comments from the public, none. Old business, none. New business. The 2017-2018 calendar abatement. The committee reviewed the changes to the current calendar due to the fact that no emergency days were used this year. As a result, the school year will end on Friday, May 25th. The revised calendar will be brought to full board for approval. And the new school report card. Dr. Williams gave a presentation on the new school report card that will roll out this fall and will reflect essence. The school will be judged as a various academic measures such as ASAT and the graduation rate, along with student success indicators such as freshmen on track, college, and career. Opportunities to use the decision aid were highlighted along with the use of tools such as career cruising or novice to assist the tracking students, college and career readiness indicator. The committee recommended that this presentation be given to the full board on June after the spring SAT scores are released. Announcement, the next meeting will be held on Tuesday, May 1st at 6:30 at the Ed Center, and the meeting was adjourned at 7:30 p.m.
Thank you. Student services?
Student services.
Ms. Campworth called the meeting at 6 p.m. Roll call, Ms. Campworth, Mr. Johnson, Ms. Burns, and Dr. Goggins. Communications, none. Old business, none. New business, Dr. Goggins presented the following handbook change recommendations. Number 1, the section on electronic devices to read as following. Electronic devices. The school administration is authorized to discipline students using a cellular phone, video recording device, iPad, tablet, or other electronic device in any manner that disrupts the educational environment. Cell phones and other electronic devices cannot be used in locker rooms and restrooms. Cannot be used in the classroom without permission from classroom teacher. Notifications and ringtones must be set to silent or vibrate, and speaker mode may not be used. Number 2, the section on book bags to read as follows. Students are permitted to carry book bags in medium-sized and duffel bags during the school day for the purpose of transporting their books, iPad, or classroom materials. Number 3, the section on smoking to read as follows. Students may not smoke, possess, transfer, or use tobacco and smoking materials, including vaping and or e-cigarettes. The section on computer misuse to read as follows. Unauthorized use of computers, iPads, tablets, or other school property. Students shall not use computer equipment or other school property without the permission of the appropriate staff member. Number 5, the section on gang violation to read as follows. The Board of Education has determined that the presence of gangs or gang activities, including tagging or writing symbols on school property, folders, homework, etc., can cause a substantial disruption of or material interferences with school and school activities. Number 6, the section on unsupervised after-school or following school activity to read as follows. Students have 10 minutes to exit the building at the conclusion of the school day or school activity or event. After review of all recommended handbook changes, the committee agreed to make a recommendation to the full board for approval. Adjournment was at 6:12 p.m.
Thank you. Personnel, Ms. Russell?
I have a question on that.
Oh, we don't, not time for that.
No, that's fine. Yeah, because I'll stop.
On April 9th, the Personnel Committee met at 6:30 PM. Present were myself, Mrs. Campworth, Mrs. Stearns, and Dr. Goggins. Guests were Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Giglio-Bycheck. For new business, Dr. Goggins presented the following certificated staff recommendations for discussion. For Bremen, the approval of the maternity leave request for a physical education teacher. Tinley Park, the approval of the retirement request for a business teacher. Hillcrest, the acceptance of the resignation of a science tutor and the approval of the employment of a counselor. Oak Forest, the approval of the employment of a counselor. For the district, the approval of the additional employment positions of alternative education director and special education coordinator for curriculum and instructional support. After review of the certificated staff items, the committee agreed to make a recommendation to the full board for approval. Dr. Goggins presented the following educational support personnel recommendation for discussion. At Bremen, the approval of the employment of a weekend custodian. Tinley Park, the approval of the employment of a weekend custodian. Hillcrest, the approval of the retirement request for the attendance secretary. Oak Forest, the approval of the employment of a special education aide and the change in position of a custodian to general maintenance. Announcements, there were none. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 11th at 6:30 PM at the Administration Center, and our meeting was adjourned at 6:58 PM.
Thank you.
Item 10.1 pertains to the bills, addendum to bills, payroll, and CDS bills. Superintendent, along with Finance Committee, is recommending these items for full board approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Gleason, second by Ms. Russell. Any discussion? No discussion.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mrs. Ressler?
Aye.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye. Motion passes. Go on.
Item 10.2 pertains to the 2018-2019 operating budget. This has been a practice in District 228 for many years as a means of ensuring that time-sensitive orders such as textbooks, workbooks, and supplies are placed and received in time for the start of the school year in August. The FY19 operating budget allows personnel to expend up to 50% of the FY18 budget. A more finely tuned tentative budget for FY19 will be available in July before the final adoption of the budget next September. Superintendent, along with Finance Committee, is recommending the 2018-2019 operating budget for full board approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Gleason, second by Ms. Russell. Any discussion? No discussion.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mrs. Ressler?
Aye.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Item 10.3 pertains to the rejection of check number 28035 for protective sports equipment. At the end of fiscal year 2017, helmet protectors were purchased for our football teams. However, upon further investigation, the protectors actually damaged the helmets and did not meet IHSA regulations. Helmet covers were not used during the FY18 football season. Superintendent, along with Finance Committee, is recommending full board approval of the rejection of check number 28035.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Gleason, second by Ms. Russell. Do you know why we did this in the first place, why we bought these?
This was something that was.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question too.
It was something that was discussed with Mr. O'Malley and the athletic directors. I'm not exactly sure the reasoning behind it. I believe it was mostly just to add some safety measures for our students. And that seemed like a great idea at the time, but then once we realized that it was gonna void our warranties.
Yeah, that's why
It was a clear picture set out by IHSA after we engaged in the purchasing of them that didn't recommend them. That was not out when we purchased. Just more of a timing piece. And the helmet companies came out with some evidence that said that they would not allow the warranty to be intact. But that was, we didn't have that information when we purchased.
So the company didn't say like, oh, this won't work, you know, change the helmets in any way?
It was silent at that point, so, and this was at the same time we were putting in the turf fields and we put the pad in, we were on
Right.
a kick to protect our students and make them safe.
Yeah, I remember thinking it was a good idea too.
After further review, there was just more information we didn't have when we made the
But then
recommendation.
now it's like, I can remember the athletic director wouldn't let my daughter wear her catcher's mask that was painted because if something happened, that the paint could have caused something different with the helmet, so then that made sense.
Right.
But, so was their product returned to them and they could do whatever they want with it, or?
We offered to give them the product back. They were demanding the payments. So that's why we're bringing it here tonight to say we're not paying for
I
it.
got a
So they're
question on
probably gonna have
this
issue.
too.
But wasn't that was
Dr.
discussed
Kendall, were
in
we
there already.
misled at all by this company as far as they should know the IHSA rules if they're putting on a piece of equipment to partake in one of the IHSA activities, correct?
Actually, no school in Illinois uses them.
They
So
were-
they did not know that was going to
That's
be the
what's
issue.
coming.
They were silent.
Why did they make the sales pitch on us then for these? I don't understand it. If they knew that it wasn't going to pass the IHSA standards, why are they out there making a pitch to schools?
Because
Where I
Or
think
did
they
we
were,
come to
they
them?
actually presented at the state conference, and that's where, I think that's where Mr. O'Malley saw them. And nobody did. It looked like a great thing.
there was no decision by the helmet companies at the time where they were presenting. So they need to work out their situation
Right.
with the helmet companies, but I didn't feel comfortable putting our students in a helmet that didn't have a warranty. So that's.
Oh, no, I agree.
Right.
How are we exposed here if we stop the payment on this check? And, there's probably going to be something that, a lawsuit or something like that. Do you agree?
There's some language in
Dr.
there,
Kennedy?
there's some language in our contract that says that they need to, we have the ability to return them. For some reason, they're not accepting it. But so we feel comfortable
Because
with
everybody's returning.
what we're doing right now.
So there's a contingency in the contract which already states that hey, if these are not IHA,
No. If you're unsatisfied with them, we'll
Product, yes.
accept them back. They've chosen to demand payment.
And we never even installed them.
We've never
Yeah.
used them.
so we've never used them, we
We
never unpacked
we
them.
found out that the helmets weren't warranted.
How much was this payment?
$52,000.
What was it?
52?
$52,000.
They're not gonna put a lawsuit together for $50,000.
They're small.
Because if everybody is, that's all the questions I have.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye. Dr. Williams?
Item 10.4 is the recommendation of the abatement of 5 emergency days from the 2017-2018 school year. The Teaching and Learning Committee, along with the superintendent, are recommending revised 27-18 calendar for full board approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Stern, second by Gleason. Any discussion? No discussion.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye.
Item 10.5 is the instructional materials adoption for 2018-19. The Instructional Materials Review Committee, comprised of teachers, parents, and administrators, reviewed the attached materials along with the Teaching and Learning Committee and are recommending their consideration by the board. Textbooks and supplementary materials, if applicable, were on display at the Administrative Center and are on display at this board meeting. Actually, I forgot to put them out. Sorry about that. A list of the textbooks and supplementary materials is attached. The Teaching and Learning Committee, along with the superintendent, are recommending these textbooks and materials for full board approval.
So moved.
Second.
As long as I don't have to repeat that motion.
Moved by Gleason, second by Wrestler. Any discussion?
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Item 10.6 is a resolution honoring staff. All District 228 staff members are honored annually during District 228 Staff Appreciation Week, which is taking place May 7th through May 11th. Ms. Gleason, could you read the resolution?
Yes. Resolution honoring Bremen District 228 staff members. Whereas education is one of the most important components to the economic, democratic, and social strengths of this nation, this state, and this community. And whereas all staff members in the education field are relied upon to educate and assist our children, and whereas as a school community, we have a responsibility to provide children with programs and services that are necessary for academic success, and whereas we must prepare children for the challenges they will face throughout their lives, and whereas we must continually seek ways to promote greater community understanding of the value of those who work in education in providing excellence in the classroom, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education and Administration of Bremen High School District 228 urges the school community to make a special effort to show gratitude during Staff Appreciation Week, May 7th through 11th, of those in the educational field who have devoted and dedicated their lives to helping children achieve academic excellence, adopted this 17th day of April 2018. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gleason, second by Wrestler.
Jones.
Jones, I'm sorry. You do. Any discussion?
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye.
Mrs. Stern?
Aye. Dr. Goggins?
Handbook changes refer to sections electronic devices, book bags, smoking, computer misuse, gang violation, and unsupervised after school. The Board Student Services Committee met on April 9th, 2018. They reviewed the recommended handbook changes, and these are now being recommended to the full board for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Stern, second by Gleason. I had brought up that I thought headphones and earbuds should be banned during passing periods. It doesn't seem like kids paying attention. It's all willy-nilly when we're walking around. Dr. Goggins said our schools have not advised the Ed Center that that's an issue. Do you guys find that an issue or no?
Earbuds are an issue.
Transition.
In the halls.
In the hallways, headphones and earbuds are,
There.
only because it sometimes create a safety hazard because they don't hear when you're asking them.
Yeah, I had said the same thing, but that's what I was gonna ask you about earlier, the transitional period. During transitional periods, you know, a lot of what I'm hearing from, understanding from some of the teachers, like even when they come in the classroom or whatever, if you try to address them out in the hallway, they can't hear, or there's safety concerns in case there's a drill or something, you know, might happen. That's what I've been getting, the understanding I've been getting, that they, during all transition, you know, like the transitional periods, there's an issue with the headphones. And sometimes, you know, the kids, they have them on and they're like, oh, yeah, you know, they're coming in the classroom.
Some of them are pretty expensive too. They
Yeah.
I know the teachers should be real happy that instead of saying cell phones are allowed now, we're saying no. And it's up to the teacher to introduce that to the classrooms now. So we're starting out with they can't use them, and they actually have to bring them, the availability to use them. And then book bags, we've pared it down to they have to be small and medium, but is there any way we could like offer in the school store something like those tie bags, you know, those, they're smaller little bags?
That would be a question for the schools. I don't know what they offer in their,
I'm sure we
I
could.
don't know what they offer in those stores.
Those don't seem very large.
We don't currently offer them. I mean, we could offer whatever.
But if like,
We give all of our freshmen, what you're talking about, it's like a zip, or
What are those
string
called?
bag, string bags.
String bag.
They, not all of them choose to use them, they have their own bags stuff too, but if anyone needs to leave, we'd be happy to share that information. They're fairly affordable, as a giveaway or as a school store item, there's no problem there.
is this a concern for the teachers that kids having backpacks, right? Either safety in the classroom or just what might be in there?
It's been a
Thought we just
consistent,
changed this last year based on students' comments that they couldn't carry all the books, they were having
Yeah.
difficulty getting to lockers
it's been a
between classes.
consistent concern of some teachers.
Right.
I don't know if we've done a full-blown poll of all the teachers. There's certainly some people that disagree with a lot of things we do. I don't know to what level that is. We made our recommendations based on the information that was given to us and what we feel is respectful and supportive of our students and reasonable to our staff. If we want to go in a different direction, the board can do what they want.
Was any of this discussed at this meeting?
Yeah, I brought up headphones and was told that
And in the meeting,
they allowed it.
in the meeting.
Yeah, it was allowed, and that's why I thought we were here to discuss changes to the handbook.
Well, we asked the buildings to make recommendations based on their committees. Those recommendations then were given to Dan to bring. to the
So
board.
no one in the buildings recommended no headphones? When you gave recommendations to Dan?
We have a current rule of no headphones that are the oversized ear covering headphones. So our practice is that you can wear earbuds. We do ask that students keep at least one ear available. Again, that's something that right now, currently speaking on behalf of Oak Forest, that we're comfortable with. So I can see why my deans wouldn't maybe recommend a change there. So I'm not positive of the other schools, but that's just speaking on behalf of Oak Forest.
Well, the handbook says that, but what's actually done at the school is something different. So we have a lot of students that wear the earphones as opposed to the buds.
That would be a responsibility of the building, not the board.
Right, so, I mean, the handbook does address it though, so.
So that would be the expectation of the building to follow the handbook.
But it's in the handbook, she's saying.
It's in the handbook that the big ones are not
Yeah,
allowed.
the big ones are not allowed.
That the earbuds are reasonable.
Our summary did not address earbuds. That's been probably something we're dealing with more as of late. But I do believe our summary did discuss concerns from parents about bags. So not just teachers, but parents.
The bags, are we,
So,
I'm still kind of
That
confused.
stuff's being handled by the school building,
No.
the earbuds and air monks or whatever the heck they are.
They follow the handbook. Earmuffs.
The handbook says,
I'm gonna put my board hat aside, and I'm gonna put my parent hat on. And I heard this week that Tinley, put in place, some policies on that type of stuff and phones and stuff like that, which I was very happy to hear. So I'm a little bit confused now. So not all buildings are following it, it's just, Tinley Park right now?
No.
No, and Mr. Canning, that had to do more with tardies than anything else. It was just about kids being where they're supposed to be when the bell rings. It wasn't necessarily dealing with headphones or earbuds or anything necessarily. That was just tardies and being where you're hallway transactions.
I wish it was, pointing towards the earbuds and all that stuff, but that's just my opinion as a parent. I'll put my board hat back on.
No, the earbud, and I just talked to Dr. Sikora too about the one in, I mean, we're having issues with earbuds. Headphones, we do, I mean, when we see them, we tell them to put them away or put them in their locker. But earbuds are allowed, so that's what we're dealing with right now.
But,
Okay.
but it's a problem. So why we have a chance to change it, if I'm hearing correctly.
I would say at Tinley Park High School, they're a problem.
But the problem we have is not, it's addressed in the handbook, we just have to do more enforcement.
So they don't use the buds in your school.
It became so overwhelming with so many kids using them, that the deans have, there's so many other issues to deal with, that that's not one that they deal with, but it doesn't mean it is not creating a problem. But the handbook does address it. So, the handbook talks about earbuds, but our students are wearing both.
We have not experienced major issues with earbuds. If we do, we address it with the individual student. Big headphones, we ask them to take off, and they do. It hasn't been a major issue that we've had over and over that we've heard about. So
That's the problem.
that's where we are.
Well, can I make a statement? The board can make the rules as strict as possible. The buildings can follow the rules to the best of their professional ability, however they do it. My philosophy has always been that most of our students are very respectable. 90% of our population does a very good job. if you make the rules for the 90% and adjust to the people that are obstinate, not following the rules, I think you have a much friendlier and a better campus and a better culture than if you establish rules for the 10%, because there's 10% that cause problems. If you establish the rules for those 10%, you're impacting the 90% that are pretty appropriate and respectful. So we can flip that philosophy, but I think that's going to do more to harm the culture and climate of your building than help it. Are there frustrations? Are there things that we need to work on? Absolutely. But strictly shifting our policy puts some really good kids in inconvenient situations.
Well,
My opinion.
I know some of the teachers have mentioned, like, you know, in transition when they're in the hallway or when they're coming into the classroom, sometimes they do speak to them and there might have been going back and forth and like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you because I had the earbuds in or I forgot I had, because they're, you know, comfortable earbuds. So sometimes you forget because you got them in your ear and you might have not heard the teacher, administrator, whoever. So I was like, you know, concerned about that as an issue.
So Dr. Nolan, you wanted to have it like when we drive, we have to have one ear available. Is that correct?
Well, actually, I just talked to Dr. Sport tonight about, that's what they do at Oak Forest.
That's what we asked.
Our issue is because earbuds are allowed in the handbook
Right.
during transitional times. The large majority of our kids do walk the halls with earbuds in.
And again, there's rules and expectations, then there's the enforcement of the rules and expectations. I bet you most people in here went over the speed limit on the way to school today. Did you get a ticket? I mean, it's the same situation. We're not going to be perfect. We're not going to catch them all. We need to be reasonable. We need to enforce the rules that are interfering with the educational environment. And I respect and expect our administrators to do that while they're respecting our students and our teachers. It's a fine line. There's not anything that we can do up here that's going to make the world a perfect place for everybody. And everybody's allowed to have their opinions. We may agree or disagree with those opinions, but they're allowed to have them.
I have two quick questions. Dr. Goggins, for number 3, about this section about smoking, is there, and I know I don't have the full paragraph or the full section of this, but is it like a foot limit from a door, or is it like period on school property, or is this like ever?
School property.
Okay. And then as far as the bags, I'm kind of confused as to what the complaints are about the bags. Is it that the parents don't want bags at all on the kids, or there's concerns about kids carrying bags at all, or that the bags need to be bigger? I guess I'm not sure what the concerns are with the bags.
The issue that was addressed at the handbook committee meeting was the use of the bag. In some instances, students have backpacks that they weren't necessarily just carrying their books or their classroom materials in, but maybe they were putting athletic equipment in as well. You know, I know my son has a backpack that has a bat that can go in it and things of that nature. So the recommendation that came forward was that we want our we're not changing what we've talked about regarding backpacks. We don't want them to be too large, but we expect them to, if they would like to have backpacks, they can have backpacks. But the board's intent with making that part of the handbook is for them to carry their classroom materials, not everything.
Right. Okay.
They also have a locker for those other things.
Well, and at the same time, we're trying to balance very small lockers and a tardy policy. So all of those things are happening at the same time. We want to be respectful of our students and give the ones that can handle it the opportunity to deal with it. If there's some people that are taking advantage of it and doing some things that they shouldn't be, those are what I expect our administrators to deal with.
All right. Thank you.
I'd like to put a question in there, Dr. Kendall.
Sure.
Wasn't it more about, I don't know any other board members, but I've heard a lot, especially when we did do those surveys, that those bags were real concerning to the staff as far as, you know, they didn't know what was in them. You know, you could basically put anything, because we weren't checking them, correct?
We don't check them.
Okay, so
There is some
it was
people-
real concerning to a large, I don't want to say large portion, but to some faculty members about having those bags in their classroom and basically not even knowing what's in them, you know?
There's been a consistent group of faculty members that don't believe that the kids deserve to have the backpacks in school at all, period. I don't know how many there are, but they have been consistent in their message.
Do we allow teachers to check the
Well,
bags?
you know, we're talking about, you know, making the kids comfortable in the 90%. And to some extent, I do agree with you, Dr. Kendall, but, you know, you're talking about kids possibly walking around the buildings with their ears obstructed by whatever it is they have in them. We have all these crazy things going on in the world today with, you know, the shootings and all that. And we're talking about handbags and duffel bags being allowed in the classroom. At some point, we got to say, you know, we feel for that 90%, but we also have to make sure 100% of everybody is safe. And I think those are two concerns, the air things and then the duffel bags that, you know, feed right into what's going on or what could go on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Larry.
If a student has their ears closed, and I've done it with my own son, I sit there and have a conversation, and I'm expecting a response, and it's like I never say anything. He's had his earbuds in. So I know these things are pretty powerful where you can't hear what's going on around you, which means would they ever know if there's an emergency going on to get in a classroom, lockdown, or what have you?
Plus,
So
it
that's
makes
my
them-
concern.
it makes
It's
them even
100%
louder.
safety for everybody.
Makes them even louder when they're talking. I seem to remember like over the summer or something, I don't know if it was Mr. Donegan or someone brought up like the book bags being a safety issue or something because they weren't fitting under the kid's desk or that. Do you remember?
There was some,
Teachers pick a spot or something. It
right,
was-
there was some teachers that expressed concern that the kids were leaving him in the aisle, and it was if he had to leave the class for a fire drill. We've made accommodations for teachers who wanted places in the back of the
Hangers.
room or whatever they wanted to adjust for that, and we're still open to that piece. The one piece that I do want to make sure we all understand is, I agree with you that safety and security of our building is absolute priority. I don't ever want us to get a false sense that because our students don't have backpacks that we can guarantee safety. There's a lot of research that talks about making connections with students, being available, being open and connected with students more than policies to make your building safe. So that's the road we want to go down as far as I'm concerned as the leader of the district, that we want to have relationships with all of our students. We want to be connected with all of our students. We don't want to legislate safety because you're never going to get there.
They also
Did you have
the
any
highest
discussion with, I know that you were having a security expert, and I don't know, you know, how that's going,
Yes.
but did that ever come up, Dr.
Yeah.
Kendall, as far as something that should be allowed? What's their opinion on that? You know, obviously towards the safety of the kids.
He has not completed his report for us. He still has to visit one building. I've talked about backpacks. He does not recommend big metal detectors. He said some schools have used, kind of like we do with our dogs, every once in a while, wand the bags. You do it randomly, you tell people up front. I have not broached that subject with our principals. Dan has not talked to the deans about it. He said in some schools that alleviates some of the fears that something bad's going to be in the backpack, but there's no guarantee that kids that are angry and want to do harm won't do harm just because there's no backpack. We're dealing with two separate issues, and people go to the simple solution when it's a much deeper and complex situation, and our best defense, our best course of action is to have great relationships with our students, to honor who they are, what they do, what they stand for, as opposed to becoming disciplinarian and policemen of them. So that's the message that I'm trying to send. I know some people disagree with that message. That's the nature of the world right now. But we're absolutely concerned about the safety and security of all of our staff and students. That is not what we're up discussing tonight. It's more convenience, and sometimes we blend the two things together, and I don't want us to do that.
I'd like to say that ISB just did in November conference, they had a speaker come from Washington. I don't know if this is past year before, but they had a speaker come from Washington. He basically kind of touched on what Dr. Kendall just said, is the relationship you have and making sure that you're present in the hallway, as far as administration and being aware and knowing who your students are. That helps more than anything, because if you know who your students are, you know that you learn their behaviors and things like that.
And they have to feel comfortable coming to an adult. And we've had, unfortunately, a couple of situations that were averted because our students felt comfortable enough to share information that we had. And those are incredibly good efforts by our administration and by our staff, because that relationship's built.
Well, I 100% agree with you on relationships, but you're talking about 5,000 kids, okay, and you're talking about looking at a situation where are we talking about the real times here, and obviously everybody watches the news, okay, and sometimes the relationships, they aren't going to go as far as you might think, okay, is what I'm trying to say. And by, something with these handbags or these duffel bags, again, if I'm a teacher in one of those classes, my concern is sky high if I see 6 or 7 bags sitting there underneath the students' desk. It's just me, but I'm
They'll
trying to
look
live
inside
in the
of
real
them.
world here.
You have the right to look inside of them. If you're uncomfortable, open your bag. I want to see what's in it. I mean, I
don't see kids
personally,
liking that.
there's a lot of security at the airport. It's lovely, but I certainly don't think that nothing's ever going to happen.
I wonder if passing period was less chaotic, if the need for carrying the backpacks would be there. I mean, I know there's kids that won't go to their lockers because these kids congregate there, or, there's no more, used to be you stuck to the right side of the hallway, now you're like intermingled with everyone.
No, those are management issues that, if the teaching staff and the administration puts an effort into, those things will be fixed.
The kids
Sometimes you
can't
can't,
hear 'cause they got their earbuds in.
it's more about timing. If you got a class on the second floor and your other class is in the other wing somewhere, you just can't get to your locker and back. I mean, I volunteer in a 5th grade, and I see these kids lugging a stack of books from classroom to classroom. You want to talk about chaotic? And then it's piled on the floor when they get there? I think that's worse.
I thought we were getting away from the books anyway.
But you still have lab manual, there's still some paper resources out there that they can bring to class.
Equipment.
But it shouldn't be the big giant.
There's
But there's still many of our upper level classes we haven't gotten to because we're on a curricular cycle. So yeah, your AP books are going to be too much to stick.
there's
We
a
just approved a bunch of books.
We just did.
Larry, there's a whole deal on safety and security on ISB website. It's like on the front page, and it gives you the resources, to address those concerns. And then there are also some webinars that you might want to look at that are available online as well for safety and security.
And I'll
And that's
eventually share the whole, I'll eventually share the whole report when it's complete by our security expert, which is on their head.
Well, you know what, I'm certainly not advocating to yank everybody's book bag today. Don't, I hope that's not the message you're getting about the way I feel about it, but, checking them like Mrs. Gleason just said, yeah, maybe the teachers, but then, you're taking time out of their schedule to check back. So it's just between a rock and a hard place, really. With it,
There's no simple solution. There's a lot of moving parts at once.
Yes, because, I was a student once, we were all students. I was an athlete. You carry your equipment in there because you just can't get to your athletic locker in time. And so, I get it. I totally get it. But again, I just don't, I want to know that I'm living in today's times, and you turn on the news and you see what you see, and I agree with the relationships, but maybe some of that has to be given up, and I hate to say that, on the side of safety, so that's all I'm saying with that.
So are the students doing pretty good on carrying medium backpacks, and what is our definition of medium? Because I know a lot of parents ask.
What's our definition of speeding? It's kind of the same thing. If the student is respectful, puts the bag in a respectful place, it's not out in the hallway, they're not carrying 30 pounds on them, and it's okay. You kind of know it when you see it. If they're respectful, it's okay.
So do we have a big problem with that as far as?
Depends on who you ask.
Okay. So
I'm going with the recommendations that Dan made. If there's something that we want to table and revisit, the board's, that's your right to do that. We'll follow along with you.
Dr. Sims, is there a problem at your school?
Not so much with book bags. And then, like I said, with the headphones, at some point, it just became overwhelming and our deans just stopped trying to really enforce it, but it's not because the handbook doesn't address it. So if we have an issue and a student refuses to do something, then we have something to fall back on to deal with a parent in a conference. It's overwhelming right now just because of the fact that we have so many other things that, when we see them, sometimes we tell them to take them off, sometimes it's just, they keep moving. But they are an issue in terms of the earbuds, because the students just, they're in their world. They want to have their hoods on and their earbuds, and they can listen to their music and do whatever, but they're not there for that. They're there for education, so we do have to tell them to take them out. Most of the time they comply. We don't have as many. At one point, you used to ask, give me your cell phone and give me your headphones. There was an argument or a whole conversation. We don't typically have that anymore. They're usually complying when you ask them to take them out.
I had a question on the cell phone. So the locker usage, restroom, that was because of the camera feature, maybe, or that's on the devices.
That would be bad.
Yeah, because you see something on Facebook where it's terrible. You wouldn't even believe it. Oh my God.
So
we have a motion and a second.
so now it's just a vote.
Roll call. Mrs. Stern? Aye. Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Pressler?
Aye.
10.8 is personnel under resignation.
I would like to put 10.8.5 for separate.
Which one does it?
It's already separate.
Oh,
No,
well,
it'd be a separate vote.
yeah.
You have to make up.
Vote on separation.
Well, first we have to get a motion.
But she does them all at one thing.
Right, so first we need a motion on all of them, and then you can.
Well, he was starting with resignations.
First need a motion, give them the second.
So moved.
Right?
Second.
Second.
What is it?
To remove 10.8.5, to remove it, and then we can vote on the rest of them, and then you can vote on that.
Okay.
You get that, Larry?
Yeah, I can second that motion. I think, who made the motion?
I don't know.
Stern?
Who made the motion?
I did.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And who seconded?
Larry did.
You seconded the motion, Larry?
Yes.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mrs. Gleason, no. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye.
Good to go now? Okay, now, item 10.8 pertains to personnel. Under resignations, Carmel Blackmore. Under retirement, John Richter and Nancy Gordon. Under maternity leave, Caitlin Kelly. Under employment, Eric Boyer, Robin Vila, Jerry Ward, Amy Sopcak Richardella, Brian Scheit, Joe Laudadio, Mario Rivera, and Wesley Barber.
You missed one.
Also under
Dan.
employment, we have.
Dan, you missed one.
I know. I got it.
You missed a couple.
Also, yeah, I know. Also under employment, we have Terry Schreischun, who is being recommended as our PE department supervisor, and she is in attendance in our board meeting this evening. Also, we have Jennifer Reed, who is being recommended as our fine arts department supervisor, and she is also at our board member this evening, and we can certainly recognize them after this vote. And then under employment positions, alternative education director and special education coordinator for curriculum and instructional support.
So moved.
Second. Gleason and Wrestler?
Jones.
Discussion?
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mr. Canning, I'm sorry, Mrs.
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Canning, aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye.
Mrs. Stearns?
Aye.
Terry and Jenny, if you would please come forward. Well, give them an opportunity to meet the board. There you have to shake hands over the phone.
Okay. We gotta put my card, hold on.
So Terry Schreischun is our new PE supervisor. She comes to us from Joliet School District. And Jenny Reed served as our interim fine arts supervisor for the past year, and she's now being recommended as a full-time.
All right, make your rounds.
How you doing, Mark Johnson?
How you gonna do it?
Day at best. Congratulations.
Item 10.8.5 is a change in position, Al Reed to general maintenance.
So moved.
Second.
The issue I have with this is, again, it seems like we're violating the contract. The position wasn't posted. I don't understand how, just because we're changing to this schedule, how that necessitates the need for a new, a maintenance person. If, you know, we need maintenance people all the way around at all the schools, let's do it. I don't understand that, and we're not following the contract.
Did the union agree it?
No.
I can have my opinion.
No, I'm just asking.
Well, was it posted?
No.
No.
Is that our regular procedure though? Is to post all these positions, and I'm just asking. I assume that it is.
Yes, it is, Larry. With respect to this particular position, Mr. Reed's been doing basically a general maintenance role at the school currently. I talked to the union leadership. One of the recommendations out of this pilot and in talking with the chiefs throughout the district is that in addition to our certified maintenance employees, there's a need to have general maintenance employees. because the certified guys aren't always in that building, and there's a need to have them not just on first shift, but also on second shift. And so we decided to work with the union, as I said, and make Mr. Reed a general maintenance person for the purpose of this pilot and see how it goes. And I think, like I said earlier, nothing but positive comments as a result of it.
So now, Dan, is this pilot, okay, it's brought to the board for approval because the pilot goes the right way and you guys want to push it, and then it doesn't go through with the board. What happens with Mr. Allen here? Does he understand that he would go back to where he came from as far as his position?
Well, the idea would be, Larry, I think that essentially he would transition into that, or that he would have transitioned into that position anyway, and maybe somebody at the time when the pilot, if it doesn't go forward, that somebody would transition out of that position. It's not a situation where we're adding staff, so we're basically, Mr. Reed's doing essentially what he's been doing since we hired him.
So Mr. Reed is where now, right now? Is he at Oak Forest?
He's at Oak Forest High School, first shift.
Okay.
And did you say the current maintenance person is on second?
Second shift.
Second.
General maintenance person, yes.
So during the day when the kids are there and the teachers are there, there's no general maintenance person on?
Correct, other than the fact that Mr. Reed's already been doing that in his custodial capacity.
And can you
Timothy
define?
has done.
Yours
are both
define
certified kids,
general
right?
maintenance duties?
The general maintenance.
We have no general.
The certified, I think you understand what the certified
Yes.
required, electricians, carpenters, plumbers, et cetera. With respect to general maintenance, kind of doing all the other things, fixing lockers. Geez, I'd love to be able to tell you all the different things that they're doing.
Well, you got everything.
You know, things that break throughout the day, you name it. So again, the position of our buildings, the opinions from our buildings is we had initially thought that by hiring the certified employees that we wouldn't necessarily need the general maintenance in all capacities, and we found out that, you know what, we really do. And so that's why we're taking care of that with respect to this pilot, and we assume that at some point when we find this successful, that it would be something that we employ throughout the district.
Maybe you said
Hey,
you have no general, right?
employees, so you're saying that we need maintenance, even if we have certified employees in the building during the day, do they participate in general maintenance?
Sometimes,
work?
they do sometimes, Larry, but a lot of times they're assigned not necessarily to a building, they're assigned to a job that's throughout the district, anywhere throughout the district. So they're unavailable on a daily basis, and the need is there on a daily basis.
And the more we have our skilled maintenance, doing skilled maintenance work, the more fiscally responsible we are as a district, which allows us to do other things. So I think that's critical. If we're having them do general maintenance, they're not able to do the big stuff that we need them to do, which is where the money is being saved.
Mrs. Gleason, aye. Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye.
Mr. Canning? Mr. Canning?
I'm going to abstain on this one. I'm going to abstain.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Mrs. Jones?
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain too, because I'm trying to, I wanna ask a question before we go into this. So the general person that's been doing the job, just putting the title on them anyway? I mean, just putting the title, giving them the title and the compensation for the position that they're doing anyway?
He's been serving in that capacity. He's been a custodian doing general maintenance at the building.
So what's the difference between that and besides they're in there, they're comfortable with the person and all that kind of stuff? When we regularly just have somebody and hire somebody, or just put that position out there? I'm just trying to ask both.
Because we don't have the ability to add an additional person. We didn't come to you and ask for additional employees.
Okay, so we're not
So
asking for
we're not-
additional.
So there's essentially, technically.
Which
there's-
would be additional insurance and, I mean, there's a much bigger cost than just an hourly wage. And I believe at the personnel committee, I heard somebody ask what the difference in salary was, and it wasn't much. What
4,000 or
was
5,000, something like that.
Okay, I'm still going.
it? So in lieu of a new person with all the benefits, you're asking for $4,000 for somebody who's got the skills and can do the job.
Yeah. Okay, maybe my next question, so this is our regular practice of just, if somebody's in that position, I mean, I believe in giving benefit to whose benefits due, but I'm just trying to weigh some things out of my mind here.
Should we table it till next month, maybe?
I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah, can
Get
we?
some more information.
Yeah, because I'm not clear on,
What information would you need?
we have, I mean, but I'm just trying to get the understanding of that basis. I don't know, is it hard to get somebody for that position?
It's not that
We
it's
ha-
hard,
we
it's
have-
gonna be a cost.
We have
Yeah, I know, I
somebody
got
for
the
the
cost
position.
part.
We have somebody for the position who's doing the job. If you vote no, I hate to explain what the recourse would be. His recourse would be to just serve in his custodial role what he's getting paid for. And he would be appropriate to do that. You know,
There's probably custodians at each of the buildings doing maintenance positions here and there, right? I mean, my
Don't
issue
know.
is we're not following the contract, and I think that's a matter of integrity to me.
Well, you know what, that's my concern too, Debbie, you know, again, I want to follow Dan, your recommendation,
Well,
but
I
I
guess-
also want to make
yeah.
sure, you know, that we're not going to violate the contract and, you
And I
know.
guess what I would say with respect to that, Larry, and Mike Andrade is here, and so is Lynette Majewski, who's the vice president of the BEST. I had the conversation with them. They understand what we're trying to do. They don't believe we're violating the contract by doing this. If they did, they would file the grievance and they wouldn't go along with what we're trying to do.
Okay.
So, will you say that?
Yeah, and essentially, he could grievance that he hasn't been upgraded in pay if he's already been doing the job. So you already have a grievance on your
But
hands.
that, no, I don't think he could grieve it because he can blue sheet it, and that's not the position he was hired for.
In the contract, you'll see there's a pay.
But, so you're saying that you're okay for people to be awarded positions without going through the posting and bidding process?
Al Reed has essentially already been doing it for years. I'm giving you my answer. I'm giving
Yes
you
or
my
no?
answer. Al Reed's been doing it for years. We believe he's owed this. We believe he could grieve it and win it. Dan has come to us with this, and we feel it's a good solution without having to go to the grievance part of it and arbitrator, which costs both of us money.
I'm going to speak up on behalf of Al Reed just because I feel like I need to.
It doesn't have anything to do with Al Reed. I love Al Reed. It has to do with
I want to hear what Dr. Squire
the
has to say.
contract, just so you know.
Al Reed,
You know.
Al Reed will do, has done, and will continue to do anything we ask for our students and our staff. That's what he's been doing in his role of custodian, because the new system, which is still a system that we're working with, has skilled maintenance guys not stationed at the buildings, going and working on important projects that the district needs to be done. They have our first report from the buildings. That leaves a teacher who needs something fixed in their room, like a paper towel dispenser, or a lighting fixture, or whatever you might need in the buildings to be done. And Al has continued to do that. This is just recognizing that work that he's done over the last 3 years, that I believe he will still continue to do. I don't even want to approach that grievance talk. He's a guy that's willing to do whatever we ask for him in the building. This is making
And
him
who's
whole.
speaking?
Right.
And you make a good point, and that's exactly Dr. Nolan has only certified.
So if the agreement would be, and I fully support the board's decision, would be to not approve this, I would recommend to Al that he stick to custodial work, because that's what he's in the place to be doing. And again, he probably would ignore that and still continue to help our students and staff.
so we're suggesting that he supervise during that shift?
No, he goes from a custodial to maintenance. The typical procedure, though, is that the job is posted, and whoever wants to apply has that opportunity. The union president is telling us that he wants to override that contract.
That's your words, not his.
What I'm saying is, for this instance, I'm okay with it. My vice president's okay with it.